In the mountains of Kandahar, the air was thick with smoke, sand, and the echoes of gunfire. Captain Sarah "Viper" Lawson, a decorated Navy SEAL known for her cold precision, led her team through enemy territory on a mission that was supposed to be swift and decisive. But the ambush came hard and sudden. RPGs tore into the ridgeline, machine gun bursts rained down from hidden bunkers, and chaos swallowed the unit. Lawson took a blast that knocked her flat, blood filling her vision. Through the haze, she watched her teammates retreat, their shouts fading into the storm of gunfire. They thought she was gone. They left her for dead. Quick pause! Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. But she wasn't dead. Gritting her teeth, Sarah pulled herself into the shadows of a rocky outcrop, her ribs cracked, her shoulder torn. She had seen comrades die in Afghanistan before, but she refused to let her own story end here. Slowly, she reached for her field kit, patching herself up with nothing but gauze, adrenaline, and fury. Around her, enemy fighters combed the terrain, searching for survivors. Their voices echoed through the valley, growing closer. She slid a hand to her sidearm, the cold steel of her pistol grounding her. When one fighter came too close, his silhouette framed by the pale moonlight, she pressed the barrel to his chest and fired once. He dropped silently, and she dragged his body into cover, stripping him of ammo and an old AK-47. Now she was armed. Now she was dangerous. For 2 days, she moved like a ghost through the desert canyons. At night, she struck silently, sniping sentries from impossible distances, cutting throats with her combat knife, vanishing before reinforcements could react. Her enemies whispered about the woman who couldn't be killed, the shadow that bled but never died. The more they hunted her, the more their numbers dwindled. Her training from SEAL legends like Chris Kyle echoed in her mind. Patience, precision, and brutality. By the third night, Sarah had scouted the heart of the enemy's operation, a heavily fortified base dug into the mountainside, bristling with fighters and stockpiled with weapons destined to slaughter coalition forces. Most soldiers would have waited for backup. Sarah knew no backup was coming. To her, the base wasn't a fortress. It was a target. She crawled into position, her sniper rifle balanced on the ridge. One by one, she dropped the guards stationed on the outer perimeter, each shot muffled, each kill clean. Then, under the cover of darkness, she planted explosives along the base's fuel supplies. Every move she made was deliberate, methodical, unstoppable. The moment the first explosion ripped through the compound, panic tore through the camp. Soldiers scrambled in confusion, firing wildly into the night. That's when Sarah descended. With grenades on her vest, the stolen AK in her hands, and a pistol holstered at her thigh, she became a storm inside their ranks. She fought through alleyways of fire, smoke curling around her as bullets whizzed past her ears. Her body screamed in pain, but her spirit burned hotter than fear. Enemies fell one after another, their shouts dissolving into the chaos she created. The warlord himself, the man who had orchestrated the ambush that nearly killed her, tried to flee the compound. Sarah hunted him down through collapsing walls and fire-lit corridors. When she cornered him, he reached for his rifle, but she was faster. A single, thunderous shot ended him where he stood. Hours later, when the dust finally settled, silence blanketed the ruins of the base. Dozens of enemy soldiers lay scattered across the ground, weapons abandoned, fire still smoldering. Alone, battered, and streaked with dirt and blood, Sarah Lawson stood in the center of it all, alive, unbroken, victorious. When coalition reinforcements finally arrived, they found her standing among the wreckage, her eyes sharp, her weapon still hot from battle. To them, it looked like the work of an entire squad. But it was the willpower of one woman who refused to be forgotten, one warrior who turned abandonment into annihilation. Her name was carved silently into the legacy of warriors like Audie Murphy and Marcus Luttrell. And in the valleys of Kandahar, her enemies whispered of the night a lone Navy SEAL came back from the dead and left nothing standing in her wake. In the dust-choked valleys of enemy territory, the night was alive with danger. Lieutenant Emily Carter, a British Army commando known for her calm under fire, led a joint UK-US team on a covert strike. Her orders were clear: infiltrate, gather intelligence, and extract before dawn. But war had its own plans. The enemy came crashing down with precision, RPGs shaking the ground, gunfire sparking against the rocks. In the chaos of the firefight, Emily was hit, the world spinning as shrapnel tore across her shoulder. Her men fell back, retreating under command, believing she was lost. Her body slumped into the dirt as boots thundered away into the darkness. She had been left for dead, but Emily Carter wasn't dead. Bloodied and dazed, she forced herself to breathe through the pain. She knew capture meant interrogation and death. As enemy fighters swept the field, their flashlights cutting across the rocks, she pressed her body flat against the earth, heart pounding. When one soldier grabbed her arm to drag her, she acted on instinct, a hidden blade sliding across his throat in silence. She took his rifle, his ammo, and vanished into the wilderness. For hours, she staggered through the canyons, her breath ragged, every step a war against exhaustion. By dawn, she had found shelter in a ruined stone hut. There, she stitched her wound with scavenged thread, gritting her teeth until the needlework was done. She thought of legends like John Lofty Wiseman and Richard Marcinko, men who had faced impossible odds and survived. She swore she would do the same. Days passed, and the enemy began to whisper. One by one, patrols sent to track her down vanished. A guard went missing while smoking at his post. A sentry never returned from a watch. At night, gunshots echoed from the ridgelines, sharp, precise, deadly. Emily had become the hunter. She scavenged weapons, set traps with captured grenades, and turned the mountains into her ally. Rumors spread of a ghost in the highlands, a lone woman who struck without mercy and disappeared like smoke. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. Emily soon discovered the heart of her enemy's strength. Nestled in the valley was a sprawling base, fortified with walls, sandbags, and a command post that bristled with antennas. From intercepted chatter, she learned the truth. Inside were weapons intended for a massive assault on coalition forces. If the cache reached the front lines, hundreds of soldiers could die. Reinforcements for her were days away, maybe longer. She had a choice: wait and hope for rescue or strike alone. Emily didn't hesitate. She spent 2 nights studying the base, mapping sentry routes, counting supply trucks, watching the rhythms of the soldiers inside. On the 3rd night, she moved. Sliding through the shadows with nothing but an AK-47, her combat knife, and 3 stolen grenades, she breached the outer perimeter. Her first target was the fuel depot. She planted charges on the barrels, her hands steady despite the roar of her pulse. The explosion tore through the base like thunder, a wall of fire lighting the sky. Panic spread, men shouting, sirens wailing, and in the chaos, Emily attacked. She moved with precision, cutting down guards with silenced bursts, tossing grenades into bunkers, striking from angles her enemies never expected. Every move she made was fueled by survival, by vengeance, by duty to the men who hadn't made it out alive. The soldiers fired back desperately, but she was already gone, reappearing in another corner of the compound. Another flash of fire, another body dropped. She fought not like a single soldier, but like an entire army condensed into one unbreakable spirit. Inside the command post, the enemy leader rallied his men, shouting orders over the din of battle. Emily burst in through the back, shards of glass raining down as she stormed the room. The leader reached for his pistol, but Emily's rifle was already raised. Their eyes locked, and she pulled the trigger. He fell, and with him, the last threads of enemy resistance collapsed. By dawn, smoke curled into the sky from the ruins of the base. The weapons cache had been destroyed, the fighters wiped out. Emily, battered and bruised, limped through the wreckage, her face streaked with dirt and firelight. She had done what no one thought possible, taken on an entire base and annihilated every soldier within. When coalition reinforcements finally arrived, they couldn't believe their eyes. The stronghold they had been preparing for weeks to assault was already gone. They found Emily sitting on a broken wall, her weapon across her knees, her expression calm despite the wreckage surrounding her. To them, it looked like the work of an elite strike team, but it was just one woman who refused to surrender. One soldier who turned her abandonment into legend. Her story spread quickly, whispered across camps, carried into the barracks of both UK and US forces. Some compared her to Tim Collins, others to Dakota Meyer, heroes who had defied death and reshaped battles. But Emily Carter's legend was her own, born from blood, fire, and the unshakable will of a woman left behind. And in the highlands of enemy territory, they still whispered about her, the ghost who rose from the dead, the lone commando who raided a fortress and left not a single enemy standing.